It's time to get serious about your financial future. It's never too early, but it could be too late to get started. And that's oftentimes the hardest part, getting started. How much do I save? Where do I invest? Do I save for college or retirement? How much for each? And who do I talk to about it all? Okay, we'll keep things simple for now and help you answer the last one. We recommend you begin with a local financial advisor, and that's Jennifer Johnson of Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. She'll sit down with you for a complimentary introductory consultation and go over all of your questions. Get started on the path to achieving your financial goals. Visit 3magnoliasfinancialadvisors.com or call 336-701-1600. Get comfortable with your financial future. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors, retirement, financial planning, and investments. Securities offered through Private Client Services, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Three Magnolias Financial Advisors. Three Magnolias Financial Advisors and Private Client Services are not affiliated. Private Client Services is under separate ownership from any other named entity.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.
I'm Algernon Cash, and you're locked in. Today, we're talking about film, not just as entertainment, but as an economic engine. Production touches everything: carpenters, caterers, hotels, transportation, post-production, and a growing creator economy. Joining me today is Rebecca Mills, Executive Director of the Piedmont Triad Film Commission. She's on the front lines helping productions land here, hire local crews, and spend local dollars. We'll dive into the Triad's strengths, where we need to build capacity, and how North Carolina can stay competitive in a fast-moving industry. Rebecca, thank you for locking in with me. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation. You and I have been talking off and on for many years now. Just for my audience, for context for my audience, you and I just met the first time. I guess that was in the last few weeks. And my audience that follows me on social media knows that this year I became fascinated with our film and content production industry, or the possibility of expanding that industry here locally. And so I was so grateful to have a chance to meet you, and you're on the front lines of working to get all these big films and entertainment productions here to our region. So I guess let's start there. Maybe give people just a brief introduction of who you are. And for those of us that didn't even know we had a film commission, what is the Piedmont Triad Film Commission?
Well, thanks. So the Piedmont Triad Film Commission is an economic development organization. We work just like a traditional economic development office in that we promote the region to recruit business. But in this circumstance, it's specifically film, television, commercials, still photography business. And it's because this business, it creates jobs for local crew, many who are trained at our film schools in the area, and it boosts the local economy. So, in a lot of different ways. So that is why the office exists, and that is why I do what I do, and I love what I do.
That's pretty cool. You know, whenever I think about film, and I'm dating myself here, but I immediately go back to Mr. Destiny. Growing up as a child in Winston-Salem and seeing all those familiar landmarks on the big screen and knowing the streets and the roads that these guys were filming at. It was so cool, and it just made you so proud. You know, just in that moment, you were just so proud to be a resident of Winston-Salem and just seeing that film. Talk a little bit about that. How much pride do I think communities gather and gain just from being featured in some of these films and various content that we see now online?
Well, it has such a positive effect when filmmakers are here. First of all, the area gets really excited about any stars that happen to be here at the moment. Leatherheads comes to mind when I was working with George Clooney to get them to film part of the movie here. People were very excited. It brought visitors in from outside of the region just to try to catch a glimpse of George Clooney. And then after the movie comes out, like Mr. Destiny and Leatherheads, people are wanting to go and see, sites that were used in the filming, and they get so excited. It's so much fun to watch a movie with a local audience that has helped to make a film happen here. It's a lot of fun.
I don't think people consider that sort of tourism ripple effect that comes from the films. But that, Rebecca, that's what's gotten me so excited about the work that you do and the potential opportunity that I think we have, not only as a region, but as a state, as we can invite more of these film producers and filmmakers and alternative media content creators, all these different things that we're finding out about nowadays. The more we can have them in our community, the more I think it makes us more attractive and more visible to people that want to visit our community. You mentioned a moment ago, you talked about the local dollars that film generates. Walk us through how it looks when production lands here. I mean, where does the money actually go? I mean, what type of vendors is the money going to? Who's actually benefiting from a film like Leatherheads being produced in Winston-Salem?
Okay, well, first and foremost, most of the money is spent on hiring local crew, local or North Carolina crew. So if they have to bring crew in, and oftentimes they do, the hotels get a ton of business. I think for Leatherheads, it was maybe 4,500 room nights for just that one film. And I know that they stayed at Twin City Quarters, and they had a really bad year, the hotel industry, but that put them in the black for the rest of the year, just that one film. So that's one, but then it benefits big businesses and small businesses, everything like hardware stores, car rental companies, grip and electric equipment, florists. I mean, everything you see in a film, like even props and furniture, it's all purchased locally. So it's a huge impact. And I'll just give you an example. The movie Are You Here? It's the poster's right behind me with Owen Wilson and Zach Galifianakis. That movie spent $10.9 million in the region over the course of 3 months. It's a huge economic impact. And again, that was money spent on local crew and all of these different vendors. They pay for locations. They rent locations, and these locations can become visitor attractions. So, and then, and that's just the icing on top. So many businesses that even, I'm going to say, like production or companies that put gravel down where productions might need a parking lot where there is not one. So it's just a lot of different businesses. And
what I pick up on when I listen to you and even some of the research I've been doing, the film industry is far more blue collar than I think people really imagine. And I think when people think about film and content production, they have images of Hollywood and Atlanta and these big time executive producers who make all this money on the film, and investors and all these people that are making lots of money.
right.
But when you really look at the core of the film, the hundreds and hundreds and sometimes 1,000 people that a film might employ are just blue collar workers, just hard working folks, oftentimes union working folks that work in that
Right.
industry. How do we start to maybe help our legislators and people in positions of power to really understand the impact that film has on middle class and low income workers?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's such a great point. I think a lot of times there's this misconception of these Hollywood bigwigs coming in, and just sitting back and, maybe 20 people coming in from LA and just trying to get everything, around here, trying to take advantage of the area. But nothing could be further from the truth. It is blue collar type workers. It's construction workers, electricians, people, art department people painting sets, people with lighting equipment. It's just so many jobs, maybe about 200 jobs are
Wow.
created with each feature film. And that's kind of a mid-range. Sometimes it's a lot more, sometimes it's fewer. But to impress upon legislators that this does affect their constituents, that it's not just Hollywood people coming in, it's Hollywood people coming in, spending a lot of money, and then going back. But the people that benefit is this area and the people in it, because and it, I mean, all types of jobs. Yes, for lower income people, they can get jobs on the film industry, and it becomes they make more money. It's a great industry for getting good wages, and if you have the right a legislation in place, like a good film incentive, then it can be the equivalent of a full-time job.
I think that's really an important distinction, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening at the state level as it relates to film. So we'll come back to the conversation about the incentive program, or maybe the lack thereof at this point,
Right.
compared to so many other states that have gotten into the industry. But when we think about the triad, because sometimes when you live in a neighborhood or a community long enough, you don't always recognize the assets and advantages of that particular region or community. So for someone listening today that says, okay, why in the world would George Clooney want to produce a film in the Triad and not do it in Atlanta or out in Hollywood? What
Mm-hmm.
are some of those signature advantages that filmmakers are looking for when they come into the Triad area? I mean, is it location? Is
Mm-hmm.
it cost? Do we have some kind of advantage related to like crew base? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that's allowing you to close these deals with filmmakers?
All of the above. It's actually the incentive. The state incentive plays a big role, but then also the amount of crew an area has, because the more crew they can hire locally, the more they save money. It's about the look and feel of the area and the ease of filmmaking in the area. Atlanta is so overrun with productions. I mean, the traffic alone is horrific. So one of the things that I tell filmmakers is it's so easy to get around. There are three major cities within 20 to 30 miles of each other that have unique looks, and we've got small towns that are kind of the quintessential Americana, including Mount Airy, aka Mayberry, and so and also just the film friendliness of the community. You know, when filmmakers feel welcomed here, and they go back and tell other filmmakers, like, they love it here because everybody is so kind. They're not used to that kind of cooperation. And even in bigger film communities like Wilmington and Charlotte,
Hmm.
here in the Piedmont Triad, they get really a lot of one-on-one specific time with me, and also with the community as a whole and city leaders. So it's a combination. Also, we have the School of Filmmaking at the School of the Arts, and that provides lots of interns for productions, and that saves them money. So with our locations, with our crew, and with the film friendliness of the area and the diverse types of locations we have, I think that's definitely a combination that really attracts filmmakers.
Well, I certainly believe the UNCSA, the UNC School of the Arts, is one of the best hidden, kept secrets of all of Winston-Salem. You have kids that are not kids, but you have young people from all around the world that want to go to this school.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, once they make it through the School of the Arts, they're out in Hollywood and New York and working on major films and festivals and productions and so forth. And I do think that as a community, we need to find better ways to create infrastructure here in our region and within our community that
Mhm.
allows us to better capture the students that are coming through that program so that we can retain some of these super creative, bright minds right here in the Triad region. Not saying they won't ever leave and go off to Hollywood or Atlanta or New York. They probably will, but perhaps we give them a place where they can lay over when they're coming out of that program. I think that's a huge opportunity for us in the Triad. I see the posters that you have behind you. Any major films that are being produced or recorded right now, anything that's getting ready to come out that my audience might recognize and want to go see? Or
Well, without giving too much away, I will tell you there was just a film that completed at the end of August called The Bard. It's a film by the director Kevin Wilmot, who worked with Spike Lee and co-wrote Black Klansman. He's an Academy Award-winning writer, director. He just completed filming that here in Winston-Salem and Greensboro. So, and that starred David Jesse, I think you pronounce his name. He was in Black Panther and a television series that I'm blanking on its name right now. I just know he was in Black Panther, and he's just a wonderful, delightful person who, by the way, also loved being here. He enjoyed it very much and posted about it on his Instagram. But there is another movie coming up and actively looking for locations right now. And that's all I can say about it. So while we've had this dry spell for about, seriously, 10 years, for bigger budget films, I should say, all of a sudden we're getting 2 in 1 year, and I couldn't be happier, But that being said, there are also really talented local filmmakers that are producing content, and I'm so happy they're here. We have so much talent, and I'd like to see, among other things, some sort of incentive that can help keep our local filmmakers here. And like you had mentioned, School of the Arts graduates. That's a huge talent base that we could have as a tax base, So I'm trying to see if there's any ways that I can work with legislators to help make that happen.
I want to take a quick break from this show to do 2 things. 1, we'll say thank you for listening and supporting the Triad Podcast Network. Just listening to this episode is appreciated. 2nd, I want to ask that you support a local business that supports us as a presenting partner, a real estate company we trust, the Ginther Group, located in Winston-Salem. The housing market is moving fast. You need someone you can rely on to assess your situation, read the data and trends, and steer you in the right direction. Interest rates, inventory, new construction, there are so many factors that impact our local market. Don't buy into the national internet headlines. Get the information from the folks right here in our neighborhood. Contact Blake Ginther and the Ginther Group today. Whether you're buying or selling, have cash or not, or if your home isn't in the ideal condition for selling, chances are they have a solution for you. Call 336-283-8689 or visit theginthergroup.com. Buying, selling, investing, or just learning, whatever you need, start now, and like me, you can become a Ginther Group client for life.
Life is full of celebrations, birthdays, holidays, life milestones, and so much more. And who has been helping generations of families celebrate these events? Our friends at Dewey's Bakery. And even if you aren't planning for something in the near future, you don't have to wait to enjoy something savory and delicious from Dewey's. Maybe you just need something to get you through your Mondays. Drop by every Monday for a free Cake Square Day. No purchase necessary. Just come celebrate the start of a new week. So, if you're hearing this ad on a Monday and you're in your car, reset that GPS and get to one of their 3 Triad locations immediately in Winston-Salem at Thruway and Renolda Manor, plus one in Greensboro at Friendly Shopping Center. And any day of the week, you can find the perfect item with fast and easy ordering options at local.deweys.com. Plus, Dewey's does so much to help celebrate our community. To date, they've given back over $4 million to local schools, churches, and other nonprofits. Your next celebration isn't complete without something special from Dewey's Bakery. Dewey's. Celebrate every day.
Yeah, no, it seems like the current setup is, we are attractive to the larger budget films if if your budget's $5 million or greater or something in that range. But if you are a smaller, more independent filmmaker, I think about Chad Nance, who just
Yep.
produced a local film called Night Terrors that I think he's releasing through YouTube or something like that. Nicaila Knox, who's here locally, and she just released Uneven Deception, which is actually on Tubi. And, she made that film with a micro budget. I mean, a very small amount of money. But
Right.
I think that our current setup and our current program here in North Carolina, and specifically to the Triad, doesn't necessarily cultivate and nurture some of those smaller independent filmmakers. And I think that's also a big opportunity for us, especially at a time where content is in such huge demand. I think there's got to be 80 different streaming services now, and they all need content. They all want fresh content. They all want original content. And, YouTube is now, one of the biggest networks in the entire world. Instagram and these reels. There's just an insatiable demand for content. And I think there's a huge opportunity for the Triad to play a role in that. When you think about some of the films that you normally work on, what is the average budget? So the Bard that you just mentioned, how much money goes into a film like that? And then when you think about North Carolina, I mean, in terms of our tax incentives and our economic development setup, are we really competitive against other states right now?
Oh, goodness. Well, I'll start with economic impact. The Bard, this was the first film that has benefited from the North Carolina Film Grant since changes in 2015 to film here in the Piedmont Triad. It's the first one since 2015. So the movies over the last 10 years, the movies have been under 1.5 million, usually around a couple of 100,000, maybe up to 1 million, but just right under that minimum threshold to win the film grant. You have to spend at least 1.5 million. So the Bard, and this has been in the press, they got $4 million from the state incentive, which means they spent 16 million. So over the course of 3 months, that's a huge economic impact, and they get 25% back. So the problem with the film grant as it's written currently, it is geared towards those bigger budget union productions. So the union productions, once they look at a state, the first thing they're going to look at is where are the union designated production centers? And there are only 2 in North Carolina, and that's Charlotte and Wilmington. So to film elsewhere, it's going to cost them a little more money because they're going to have to house out-of-town crew. They're going to have to pay per diem and probably get them transportation too. So that adds up. What I'd like to see happen is the film grant to lower that minimum spend to around 500,000, which is what Georgia currently offers. And that would open it up for a lot more of productions to come to the state. Now, to get more productions to the Piedmont Triad and other regions outside of those 2 production zones, I have suggested the legislators over the last few years to do what some other states are doing, which is offering an uplift in the incentive for productions that film outside of those 2 areas. For example, the film incentive is a 25%. It acts as kind of a rebate. So instead, if you film outside of Charlotte and Wilmington and get a 30% rebate, it's not asking for more money to be put into the allotment that the state has for the film incentive. It's just asking the state to give a little bit more to productions that film outside of those centers so that we can get more business. We can level the playing field. It's not competing because these Charlotte and Wilmington are always going to be the first choices for productions. but it will just, like I said, level the playing field, allow filmmaking to spread throughout the state, and give us a better chance at retaining some of that young talent from film schools.
Yeah, to play devil's advocate a little bit, Rebecca, you did mention Georgia, and Georgia has been making significant investments into its film industry for more than 30 years now. I think obviously it's paid off quite a bit. They say
Oh, yeah.
this is the Hollywood of the East now. When North Carolina legislators look at what's happening in Georgia, which is just one state away,
Mm-hmm.
what's the real incentive for them to say that they want to compete against a state like Georgia when clearly Georgia has been doing this so much longer than we have?
Well, I will tell you that in 2015, when those drastic changes were made to the film incentive, we lost a huge amount of our crew base and tax base. People were moving to Georgia because they could find work and they were taking their families. So we lost talent, we lost crew to another state. So they're benefiting. They're benefiting financially. They're benefiting with all the infrastructure built in Georgia to support the level of filmmaking that they have. And so we lost money and crew, North Carolina citizens, that we'd like to have back, or I'd like to see have them back. Actually, they want to come back. So it only makes sense for legislators to think about their constituents that they want to keep, especially like in rural areas of the state. They talk about brain drain all the time. Having and supporting a film industry will keep young people here. It's a thriving industry and it's an exciting industry.
No, I agree with you. I'm gonna push back a little bit because I'm really trying to get to a certain answer here. But I totally agree with you. I think it'd be great to have, be great
Mm-hmm.
for our young generation, our young creatives, and so forth. But when we look at it realistically, we haven't
Right.
made the investments that Georgia has made for 30 plus years. So for us to really create an environment and an infrastructure that's competitive, we
Mm-hmm.
would have to start making some significant investments ourselves. So if you're a legislator sitting in Raleigh, how do
Mm-hmm.
you come to that conclusion that we make the investments in this industry? Why wouldn't we take the same money and make that investment into energy or our import exports on the coast? I mean, there's so many other industries that we could put money into. Why is it? And I mean, and I'm asking you because you're
Right.
like in the heart of this industry. Why is it would we try to play catch up to Georgia?
Well, in terms of catch up, I don't think anything has to be, I don't think we have to create any additional infrastructure. Georgia didn't have all these amazing studios and all this commitment from film until they changed their film incentive. And when North Carolina's film incentive used to be competitive and close to what Georgia has.
Hmm.
And we were building that. Here in the Piedmont Triad, we got 4 feature films here annually, at least bigger budget films that qualify from the film incentive. And so business has been down. This industry in particular, because it's so impactful and the spend is direct. There's no money. They don't require any money put up front. They only get money from the state after they film and after they account for what they spend in the state. So it's positive on that front. It's positive because it is a direct benefit to a lot of different businesses and individuals within this area, more so than any other kind of more focused economic incentive or economic development kind of effort to like energy. How many people are going to work in that? Whereas the film companies can benefit crew, people being extras, actors. I mean, people that work at the hotels. It benefits so many other businesses. I think that's one of the reasons that they should strongly consider, you know, creating a better incentive. Then once we have a good, solid incentive, the productions are going to start coming in more regularly. And then people will say, hey, I'm going to open up a camera rental company. I'm going to,
Some of the infrastructure will, some of the infrastructure will start to follow.
The infrastructure will come.
You know, it also appears to me, though, when you look at this industry, it also appears to me that they tend to flow in the direction that these incentive programs are. So a state that offers a really great incentive is more likely to attract a film. We're even starting to see where some film production is going out of the country because some of these countries are setting up really aggressive incentive programs to attract the film industry. So again, I come back to this this devil's advocate. If I'm a state lawmaker and I'm seeing this industry constantly flow like water, you know, it's just attracted to wherever it can get the best incentive. You know, how do I know that if I create this more broad-based, aggressive incentive program that you're describing, how do I know it really works? I mean, what stops Tennessee from rolling out the same program next year, and then the year after that, South Carolina does it, and you know, and so forth?
Well, the film business is like any other industry. They're going to go to where the best incentive is. However, if you have something that is like what Georgia offers, that's not offering way too much, that you're actually losing money, but it's attracting business to the state. If you have a good, solid incentive, you're going to get the business. It's going to ebb and flow. Yeah, some people are going to shoot in Europe, but, you know, most people want to stay in the States. But what you're talking about in terms of why would they invest in this because it comes and goes, all you have to do is look at Georgia. Look at the infrastructure that has been built there. I mean, because of the film incentive, they have Tyler Perry Studios. They have Pinewood. I think it's still Pinewood. They have all of these ancillary businesses that support the film industry that have been developed. I think the last time I heard, it was a multi-billion-dollar impact on Georgia, as opposed to us having maybe $125 million being spent here each year. You're talking about $4 billion or more in Georgia. So that's what I would say to a legislator. Look what Georgia's doing. And look how it's benefited.
I think what has to occur, and I'm on your side. I see the potential and the opportunity within the industry. I just, you know, my concern is that many of our state legislators don't see the opportunity and don't see the priority. And I do think that there are some valid arguments on the other side, regarding incentives. So I just think the industry has to figure out how to make that strong argument to the state legislature that, hey, this is really worth your attention. This is worth your strategic investment. And, you know, here's really not only the direct impact that'll come from that investment, but as you've talked about, sort of the broader indirect impact that also comes from the investment as well. You know, my last question here, you know, there is one politician that has taken notice of the film industry and has gotten very concerned about it, and that's President Donald Trump. And he just signed an executive order within the last few days stating that if you're making your film outside the country, you'll now be imposed with a 100% tariff. And so we just had a conversation. You and I just talked about how many of these film production companies want to flow like water to wherever they can get the greatest incentive. You do have European countries and Asian countries and so many countries now wanting to compete for that business that's coming out of Hollywood. And it looks like the president has taken notice of this and stepped in and said, no, we need to protect American-made films. Someone like you in your position, and I'm not trying to get political with you, but what are your thoughts about a tariff policy like what President Trump is pursuing?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I think it definitely will have an impact on keeping productions in the States, which I'm all for. Here's the leader of the most conservative party, and he sees the economic impact of film and it leaving the country. So that's another thing that I might point out to legislators. If it's worthwhile to the president of the United States to keep business here, then it should be it should be something of interest to our legislators. I don't know. This was discussed a few months ago, what the president said, but then it went away, and now he's talking about it again. So I'm really curious to see if this holds. But I think it'll keep productions in the United States, which is a good thing.
Well, like so many things that have happened since January of this year, we'll have to wait and see. Does it really hold?
Yeah.
Does it take effect? Does it get implemented, and does it actually get enforced? And I think there have been so many ideas and policies that have been floated this year.
Yeah, exactly.
That, obviously the word for 2025 has been uncertainty. So we're not really certain if many of these things will actually get implemented and truly enforced. I do think it's really remarkable that, they say Hollywood is mostly made up of progressives and liberals. But even on this particular topic, maybe some are having to agree with President Donald Trump, which I think is really difficult for Hollywood to come out and say right now. But, Rebecca, as we get ready to wrap up, again, this today might have been the first time my audience even heard about the Piedmont Triad Film Commission. Real quick, I just got a few seconds. Tell them where they can go learn more.
Okay, go to our website, www.piedmontfilm.com. You can always contact me. My number is 336-393-0001. And my email address is rebecca@piedmontfilm.com, REBECCA@piedmontfilm.com. And I'd love to hear from anybody that's out there that works in the region. I want you in our crew database. Anybody that's wanting to come back to North Carolina, bring it on.
Well, that's our conversation with Rebecca Mills. If you value deep local discussions that move our region forward, support the work. Your donations help me produce more conversations, spotlight small businesses, and community voices. Reach out to me directly to contribute. Every dollar helps us create more jobs, more opportunities, and a stronger triad. And also make sure you stay tuned to WTOB, because every Sunday morning, that's where you can lock in with me. But if you happen to miss me there, I hope you are subscribed to the podcast. You can get that on Apple, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you like to get your favorite podcasts. You can always lock in there. And until next time, y'all stay locked in.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode on the Triad Podcast Network. Our mission is simple: provide information, advice, and stories about the people and places that make the North Carolina Triad such a great place to be. You can find us by searching Triad Podcast Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much wherever you like to listen. If you like what you heard and want to support the show and those that contribute, we would truly appreciate a rating and review on your favorite podcast app. It helps spread the word along, as do your shares on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @Triad Podcast. To get in touch with us, simply email info@triadpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.
This is the Triad Podcast Network.